Is up, everybody? We are back with another Halo Flashpoint video, and today I'm going through my Halo 2 map, Lockout. I adapted Lockout from the game Halo 2 for Halo Flashpoint, and this is a big video going through how I did it and all the steps and processes. So I've been meaning to make this video for a long time, so a lot of this has been, changed and things as I went, and I'll try to explain that as I go, but here we go. Okay, so what I'm going to go through with you right now is kind of the design process. So one of the first things I decided to do was find a map that I thought would be good for Flashpoint. Obviously, Halo has a lot of maps, but not a lot of them would actually work very well in Flashpoint. I thought I chose a good map. I think as I'll go through the video, I'll explain some of the problems I ran up against when I actually decided to execute it. But I decided on Lockout because of the size. It seemed like I could reasonably fit a good variant of the map into the cube-based system of Halo Flashpoint. Once I settled on that, I looked online and I managed to find this really basic Halo 3, I think it was a Halo 3 version of the map on some random website. I'll probably put a link in the description. And so with that, I managed to save a lot of time by being able to plan out what I was going to do to begin with. I think the main parts or elements I wanted to focus on were the tower to the right over here, kind of what I ended up calling the bunker to the left here, the drop down over here to the, I guess, right again, and then on the far left we've got kind of like the corridor alley area. So that is the kind of main areas of the map. I think another thing to look at is when you look at it like this, you've got this big empty gap down here to the bottom right, and you've kind of got a big piece of nothing to the top left as well. So I end up filling those in as I explain, or as I'll show you. So I had that, and then with that, I just started building up, and it's going to look super duper complicated. So this is what I ended up settling on. So one of the first things I did after I got that is I put in this big grid looking thing that I scaled to be 3 inches by 3 inch cubes. And with that, I managed to, basically block out the entire map as I went. I used this 3D terrain set that I found online. The Mantic hadn't released their official 3D printed terrain yet. So if you wanted to recreate something or do this yourself, you could use the official 3D printed terrain that Mantic released. But that wasn't released at the time, so I just went with this stuff. So I think as I went through, I managed to get most of the map pretty well blocked out. I'll see if I can get rid of this grid, and I'll delete it. I basically just started on the ground floor and worked my way up. I quickly had to get rid of most of the ramps and things. So on the finished product, I didn't end up having like this ramp here, and I did keep this ramp here. I didn't end up putting most of the handrails in as I've shown. I think this tower I ended up raising up here just to be level with that, because it was just a bit of a pain in the ass to do what I was trying to plan to do. But with the map mostly planned out before time, it just made everything a lot easier later on. And I think another key consideration I had was I wanted to make it so you could actually access all these areas. So obviously having them look cool and look like the map is good, but actually having the map be playable is also really important, because if you can't put your hand in there and play with the map, then there's no point even trying. And that is another thing I'll end up talking about a bit later. But initially when I designed it, that's why I ended up with all these big open walls all around the place, because I thought it'd be a lot easier to stick your hand in there and move your model around. But like I said, I feel like I did a pretty good job for the most part of adapting this map to Flashpoint. And that is about all I got to say about that. So I'll move on. Okay, so with the design process finished, we are then onto 3D printing. I bought this Soval SV06 Plus just to print this project and also print some other stuff. I chose the Soval SV06 Plus because of the size of the print thread. I would be able to use it for some of my other projects. Like I want to try to get into like ODST helmets and, just general cosplay. I included all the failures and things in my little slideshow here. I didn't take any videos, so I don't have any cool edits to show you. But I just wanted to show you that it wasn't super duper click and play, easy peasy. I did have quite a bit of failure, but you know, it was a learning process, and I went and I got through it in the end. I think if I did this again, I wouldn't use the same 3D terrain set because it ended up using a lot more material than it needed to, I realized, or at least I realize now, just because I have a bit more experience with 3D printing. But all in all, it came out pretty good, and I'll tell you how long it took right now. So all up, it took 445 hours or 18 days, which is quite a substantial amount of time. So for this step, I did end up taking a little video, but for now, we're just gonna do a little slideshow, just so I can ramble at you for a little bit. So the terrain pieces slide all in and out using the little pillars on the corners, if you notice. But I wanted to make it very secure, so I ended up having to glue it all into place. I ended up using a mixture of hot glue and super glue. The hot glue worked pretty well for the most part, but I think the problem with hot glue and this material is it doesn't really stick together very well. At least not the way I did it. So I haven't really had too much problems with it disassembling and stuff now, but it's just something to keep in mind if you do decide to use this, is maybe you can find a better glue than hot glue. But that's what I ended up using. There's some on-the-fly modification, as you'll see. So I've got my video here. I ended up taking a bunch of screenshots on my phone of the whole building. So I have got at least a reference as I build. Just because of the way all this is put together, I had to kind of build it in sections. Especially for this piece, this building here is probably one of the most complicated buildings out of the whole set. I built the whole thing in about 5 different sections. As in, there's 5 different buildings that make up my whole Lockout map. And that makes it just easier for storage, so they're not all connected at all times, which is good. So you can see there, I got my drill out. I had to cut out some pieces just because I designed them wrong. I don't think I glued too much wrong. Like, I think I got it all right the first time most of the time. I think there was only 1 or 2 where I messed it up, and I was much more diligent about not doing that again. Because you only make the mistake once, and you're like, well, I'm not going to do that again, because that was a real pain in the ass to fix. But it's kind of cool to see the whole thing get put together in, you know, this fast motion. I think this whole clip took about an hour and a half. And so if you extrapolate that to the whole map, it took probably, let's say, like 8 hours to assemble the whole thing. But there is a little picture of it assembled, and then I've got a little, you know, flyby camera of most of the map assembled. I did have to use like some popsicle sticks for a part, and just because I glued it on wrong and I needed something quick, so I'm like, I'll just use a popsicle stick. So I put those on to one of the pieces. But all in all, it came out pretty well. I was pretty chuffed with myself at this point, and we'll move on. So now we're on to the painting, and this may look like one of the hardest parts, or maybe for you it'd be the most daunting, but for me this was actually one of the easiest parts, just because I took the whole thing as a big learning experience. So you see, the first thing I did was I primed the whole model for all the buildings in, I used a Rust-Oleum Flat Grey, which is my go-to primer, pretty cheap, pretty easy to use. I'm out in my little garden shed, and I got like a Lazy Susan. I'm just spinning around trying to get all the nooks and crannies. But as I said, I thought that I would use this whole experience of building this map as, you know, mostly just learning. And one of the main takeaways for me from the whole thing was I really wanted to learn how to try to use my airbrush well, as I'll go through in the next part of the clips. But, you know, the priming wasn't too hard. So now on to the airbrushing. So I built myself a little bootleg, I guess, airbrush box out of this cardboard box. And I was just trying to see how much I could airbrush. So I just went to, you know, a hobby shop, and I bought the cheapest airbrush colors they could get. Or at least they had. And those are all the colors. So that's how I chose my color schemes, was I just bought the cheapest paints I could find. I'd been coming off painting a lot of Warhammer in, like, you know, just like grays and things. So for this map, I was like, you know what, I'm just going to make all these really bright colors and just see how it worked out. So in my mind, this is like a big oil rig or something, like an industrial rig for someone. And that's why it's got all these high contrast colors, because that's like all the different, you know, walk areas and stuff. But I thought, you know, the airbrushing wasn't too hard. I did use like a lacquer-based paint, which I found out later wasn't good for my airbrush. So I think I ended up destroying that airbrush, which kind of off-put me a little bit, but I'll get back to it one day. So with the airbrushing done, now I am on to, I guess freehand is what you call it. So I'm just going through and freehanding a bunch of different pieces, like freehanding lights and just all kinds of stuff, really. I go through and I'll do all the handrails. I think mostly I'm doing metallics now. So I'm trying to go through and do all the different metallics and do all the little signs and things. But it sure looks like it's taken a long time, and it probably did. And if I do this again, I'd probably speed it up a lot more. I think a thing I'm also using right now is a metallic texture to do pieces of metal, and that really speeds it up in the long run. So if you can get away with using metallic pen to paint stuff, you really should. So with most of the free hand and stuff done, I went through with a metallic color. I think this was some airbrush silver that, once again, I just bought the cheapest silver I could find. And I threw the makeup brush, I literally just makeup brushed metallic silver on the whole assembly, like every single building, just to give it that really wear and tear look. So obviously I haven't taken a very good video of this, but that's just what I did to make it look really war-torn. And I wasn't too, careful about it, because obviously, it just looks more weathered the worse it looks, so that's fine by me. Another thing I did is I went through and I did all these yellow lines to indicate where different cubes ended, because some of the, walkways and things didn't quite fit the cube system. So that's why I went through with the yellow lines, and I yellow lined them all to make it very clear for everyone where they did and did not end. So now with that done, I'm going through with a brown wash, and I'm brown washing pretty much the whole thing to give it, maybe like a more weathered and rusted look. And I'm actually going to go through and do this twice. So this is the first initial wash, which is a brown, which is just probably like brown cheap paint mixed with water, and that's pretty much all it is. And with that done, I'm going through with another wash, which is a black paint mixed with water, and that really darkens the whole thing up. I wasn't too careful about doing this, so I didn't, care how it looked or dried or anything like that. Because if it looked, all puddly and stuff, it's just like, well, it's supposed to look all puddly because, it's been rained on and there's lots of weather and stuff's leaked, and I just didn't really mind, and that's why this was mostly a joy to build. I didn't really think this was too much of a hassle. I wasn't threatening about it. And sometimes this is what you do. You just have fun doing some hobby stuff, and you'll end up with a cool thing at the end, one way or another. But we're almost coming up to the finish of the painting section, and I'll have a little, So here is freshly assembled, and then we go on to freshly primed. And then from freshly primed, we go to all the airbrush paints and stuff done. I don't think I've done any metallics yet. Then we go on to the metallics and some of the freehanding. And then we go on to the, washes and that's just about done. So I don't know if you would have liked it more with the bright colors or not, but I liked how it ended up looking at the end. So some of the things I learned while I built this was I was playing on the map as I was painting it. So, I take it out to various game stores and, meetups and things to play with the map. And through playtesting and things, I figured out that the map, as I built it, was cool, and it was pretty close to, the real map. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's actually a good map for Halo Flashpoint. So what I ended up having to do was all the lower sections, so pretty much every building that was like on the ground and second floor, I ended up having to seal all that up with various pieces of walls and things. And I did that to restrict the freedom of movement, because I figured out with too much freedom of movement, the games just took too long, because people could, essentially they had too much choice, and they just took too long to decide where they wanted to go. And a lot of time it didn't end up mattering because they just die or anything. So you took, 2 minutes to decide to move a guy 1 square, and then he got blurred up with a grenade, and it didn't necessarily help the game at all. So I took a lot of the lower sections out, and I found by doing that, it actually made the games a lot more enjoyable, because then the control of the map shifted. So it came a lot more about, controlling choke points, as in, controlling the side alleys and controlling the central platform. And, you could set up like ambushes and things, which made the map a lot more enjoyable to play. I'll mention it here. This project, I think, roughly took from the 19th of May to July 21st. So it took about 2 months start to finish, which is including the printing time. But I think I am just about done with my hobby talk, so we'll go on to the finished products. are done. Thanks for watching, everyone. I really appreciate it. I hope you like my Halo 2 Lockout map for Halo Flashpoint. I feel like I did adapt this map pretty well, and I made a good balance between having it be, well adjusted for Halo Flashpoint, having it be fun to play, having it look good, and all that good stuff. Make sure you leave a like and a comment, because this one did take me quite a bit of time, and it really motivates me to continue to make more extensive content like this. If you've got a cool idea for maybe another Halo Flashpoint map that you would like to see, let me know. I've got at least one more that I am putting off making, just because I already have so much terrain for Halo Flashpoint. It's a little bit nuts, but this last one I thought would be really cool and really fun. I'll leave you to it. I'll catch you next time. Goodbye.